In the initial Alexander technique system, you make adjustments to your body. You do that by first having a conception of the set of movements that you want to make, and then gaining the skill to actually make those movements accurately, which means having a clear conception of the movements that make up an adjustment is absolutely paramount. If you don't understand the change you're trying to make, you are very unlikely to succeed. We often use models in the initial Alexander technique to make the geometry or physics of these adjustments more clear. Usually the models are very simple, but today I've made a slightly more complex model so that we can better understand the trickier aspects of a couple adjustments. Today we will consider the direction to move the lower ribs and lower sternum back and up. The back part I think is fairly clear. If you look at the average person, their lower sternum, lower ribs, and abdomen are the furthest forward points on their body. This is not desirable, as this will coincide with the hollowing of the back, which makes the thoracolumbar fascia slack. But if you move the lower ribs and lower sternum back and down, you will not be improving your posture. You will end up shortening at the front of the body. Your rib cage will go down in space, and your head will likely come forward and down as well. We must bear this in mind, as it will be easier for most people to move their lower ribs and lower sternum back and down than it will be to move them back and up, because moving them back and up will stretch the back and the front of the body in a way that is unfamiliar. So let's use our model to understand the up part of this adjustment. How do we move the lower sternum and lower ribs back and up? Here's our model of a person standing with good posture. We're looking at them from the side. We have the lower and mid-torso in red and the upper torso in black. The lower sternum would be right around here and the lower ribs here. Now let's bring our model into the common habitual poor posture that you will see in just about everyone. We see the hollowed back and protruding abdomen. Obviously, there are variations between people, but what's going to change is how high or low this bend in the back is. Some people bend lower, others bend higher, but the general problem at the back is essentially always the same. We see that the lower sternum and lower ribs are forward and down. We can also see at the lower end that the bottom of the torso is poking back and up, which causes the back of the pelvis to be angled. This is what you will find in most people. Here we can quickly look at the adjustment to bring the front of the thigh backwards and the lower sacrum forwards. The closing of the distance between these two will straighten the leg and torso. But consider this. If you continue to force your lower sternum and lower ribs down, you will hinder this adjustment, because when you have so much weight forward at the front, you need to get some weight back to counterbalance. But if you help this adjustment of thighs back, lower sacrum forward by pulling your lower sternum and lower ribs back and up, you will be able to get a much more significant movement. If we think of this as one rotation of the lower and mid-torso, the up part of lower sternum and lower ribs back and up should become more intuitive. We are stretching the front of the body with this adjustment. Because remember, in the habitual posture, this part of the body is pulled down, which will lead to a kind of drooping at the front. Going against that is going to take some determination to begin with. This is also a reminder of how beneficial it is to apply multiple directions instead of individual directions. If your subconscious habit is to not allow your lower sacrum to go forward, then unless you consciously move it forward, you will not get as much up at the front as you could when you pull your lower sternum and lower ribs back and up. Although you also need to remember that we are not pushing the whole pelvis forward. If you push the upper sacrum forward instead of the lower sacrum, you will actually push the lower sacrum back. I've grouped the lower and mid-torso together in this model because the directions that we apply to these two parts of the torso are largely the same. We can think of this rotation as one overall rotation. When we do, it becomes obvious that the lower sternum and lower ribs should go up as they go back. Our feeling sense might tell us this is strange and difficult, but we can rationally understand that this rotation should move the lower sternum and lower ribs up. If we use our conception and not our feeling sense to guide us, we can get out of our habitual posture and into something new.